Key among findings by the African Center for Economic Transformation, ACET, on the political economy of the national development banks in Ghana is involvement of government on the day-to-day operation affairs of these banks. With ADB and NIB in focus, the research shows that the two banks are still focused on the development agenda of the government. Head of Private Sector Development at ACET, Charles Odum, recommends that the restructuring of the governance arrangement of these development banks could shift the bank's main purpose of impacting the society back into focus.
Senior Director of Research and Advisory at the African Center for Economic Transformation, Dr. Edward Odum, explains that the main rationale behind the research is to propose ways to solve credit and financing problems of financial institutions in Africa. He was speaking during a validation workshop on a research conducted by the African Center for Economic Transformation on the topic, The Political Economy of National Development Banks, ADB and NIB in Perspective. According to him, the research has been conducted to aid in the formulation of policies to further strengthen operations of development banks in Ghana.
From last year, we took on the challenge to engage directly with the private sector to provide a very holistic approach to economic transformation. And so looking at the private sector, we basically have focused on two things: supporting at the policy level and then also directly being involved with SMEs at the micro level. Now, if you look at SMEs, then they come and you do a lot of analysis and assessment. They come with their own myriad of challenges. And one of these challenges is actually access to financing and cheap financing, if I may say so. And so looking at this, we've actually commissioned a number of different studies where we look at how do we de-risk financing into the SME sector.
Head consultant at ACET, Professor Joshua Abo, is optimistic that the Development Bank Act 2020 could realign development banks back to their main purpose.
If you want to look at these institutions as development banks, then we need to look beyond profit making. So performance will not be looked at in terms of profitability, but also in terms of the developmental impact, because from the discussion, we define what development banks are. Development banks are set up to achieve socioeconomic objectives or goals. And so if you are looking at it in terms of making sufficient profit to get you going, and at the same time achieving your developmental objectives or impact, they will say you are really operating as a development bank.
Head of Private Sector Development at ACET, Charles Odum, believes that the restructuring of the governance arrangements of development banks could be a first step in ensuring maximum results are achieved.
By definition, the government has a majority share in the development banks. So there would always be some kind of political interference. The question is, what is the nature of the governance arrangement that allows the development banks to operate within a framework which is developmental oriented? And what we're trying to assess today is to see the extent to which these banks, which have been developed, established over the last 30, 40 years, whether or not the institutional arrangement, the governance arrangement are still fit for